Hi, everyone. All right, so we're doing the day one notes of our unit 6, which is all about area and volume. So we're going to start off with some basic area formulas and a little introduction to composite figures. So I'm going to have you first start and just see if you can remember any of these formulas. So pause the video, see what you remember, and then I'm going to show them to you. So our circle is area equals pi r squared. A trapezoid is very similar to, excuse me, a triangle. So you have the area of a trapezoid is going to be add the bases together times the height divided by 2. So if you think about the area of a triangle, it's the height times the base divided by 2. So trapezoid is very similar. You're just going to add the bases together, multiply the height, then divide by 2. Parallelogram is base times height. All right, a kite. So a kite looks like this. And the kite has two sides that are adjacent that are congruent, and then two other sides that are also congruent. And we're going to learn a lot more about the kite, but the diagonals are also perpendicular. And because of that, it makes 4 right triangles. So a lot of times you can find the area of a kite by just figuring out the area of the 4 triangles. But there's another way to figure it out, and that's using an area for the kite formula. And it is diagonal times diagonal divided by 2. So P would be this diagonal, Q would be this diagonal. If you know those two lengths, you're just going to multiply diagonal times diagonal and then divide by 2, and that will also get you the area of the kite. And then our triangle we know as 1/2 base times height, or base times height divided by 2. So take a moment and look at that triangle formula, which you know, and compare it once again to the trapezoid. They are so similar. So you're going to use that area of a triangle formula to help you remember area of a trapezoid. All right, so now we're just going to practice using these formulas. So you should be familiar with these formulas from previous years. So feel free to work ahead and just pause and unpause the video when you're ready. All right, so I'm going to jump right into this here. So on the left, we're trying to figure out the area of this, and this is a trapezoid. So the trapezoid, we have our base and our other base, and it doesn't matter which one's base 1 and base 2. But I'm going to take my bases, I'm going to put them in for base 1 and base 2. My height is always going to be perpendicular between the bases here. So from this vertex down here, it's perpendicular, so that's the height. So I'm going to fill it in for H, and then I'm going to divide by 2. And then I just put in my calculator and click enter. For B, I've got 3/4 of a circle. So area of a circle is pi r squared. So I'm going to multiply the area of a circle by 3/4. And I have to figure out the radius. So this would be the radius. All the way across would be the diameter. So I have 3/4 pi times 4 squared. And notice it doesn't say to round. It just says find the area. So if it doesn't say to round, I'm going to leave my answer in terms of pi. So I'm only going to put into the calculator parts that are not pi. So I'm going to put this into the calculator times this in the calculator and not pi. So 3/4 times 4 squared is 12. And then I just stick the pi on. So I have 12 pi units squared. All right, we got some more, so pause the video and give them a try, or you can just follow along with me. So on the left here, I'm looking at this and I notice that I have all 4 sides congruent. Now you might be thinking to yourself it's a square, but it's not necessarily a square because I'm not told that I have right angles. So because of that, I can't just do side times side. I don't know it's a square. But what I do know is that it's a kite because these 2 adjacent sides are congruent and these 2 adjacent sides are congruent. Or I could call it a rhombus. So a kite is a form of a rhombus. So Well, in this situation, I should say, this situation it is because all four sides are congruent. That's what makes it a rhombus. So a kite is sometimes a rhombus, but a rhombus is always a kite. So if I'm looking here, I have two ways to do this problem. One way is to use the kite formula. Diagonal times diagonal divided by 2. Well, I need to know the diagonals first. In order to figure out the diagonals, if I know this is 40, and that means this is 40, and this is 50, I can use the Pythagorean theorem on this right triangle to figure out this missing side. So pretend I don't know that side right now. I already have it filled in, but we wouldn't know it. So I'm going to go a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So 40 squared plus b squared equals 50 squared. So 1600 plus b squared equals 2500. Subtract the 1600. Then I'm going to take the square root of 900 and I get 30. So that's why this is 30 and so is this. So that means my diagonal right here is 60 and this diagonal right here is 80. So 60 times 80 divided by 2, 4800 divided by 2 is 2400 inches squared. Now in this situation I didn't do this, but I also could have done 4 times the area of the triangles. So this would be my base and this would be my height. And notice they all have the same base and the same height. So I could have done 4 times base of 40 times height of 30 divided by 2. On the right here, this would be a kite. And the reason I have a kite here is because this is being bisected by the 9. And I also can see that these are congruent and these are congruent. So the easiest way to do this one would be to use that kite formula. It's going to be diagonal. So this diagonal is 9 times diagonal, which is 12, and then divide by 2. So 9 times 12 divided by 2, 108 divided by 2, 54 feet squared. Remember, pause if you want a chance to try these on your own. All right, E. E, I obviously have a triangle. So I'm going to have base times height divided by 2. So this is my base, and this is my height because it's perpendicular. So 13 times 30 divided by 2, and I get 195 centimeters squared. All right, looking at this shape, I can see right here that I have a rectangle, and here's a triangle. So this is called a composite shape because it's made up of 2 different shapes. So I'm just going to break it into those 2 pieces and figure out my dimensions here. So I have an area of a rectangle plus an area of a triangle. So I'm going to write down the formulas. Rectangle is base times height plus area of a triangle, base times height divided by 2. So this is obviously 16 by 12. This triangle, though, this base has to be 12 because this is a rectangle. And this height right here, I need to figure out. And the way I was able to figure it out is if this whole thing is 24, but only from here to here is 16, then that means there must be 8 left here. So that's my height. Notice 10 can't be my height because it's not perpendicular to the base. So I'm going to fill that in. My rectangle is 192, and my area of the triangle is 12 times 8 divided by 2. And then I add them together to get 240 centimeters squared. All right, so look at this next composite shape and see if you can figure out what 2 shapes or 3 or 4 shapes you have. And then I'm going to show you how I did it. So there really is 2 ways to do it. And I was just peeking to see which way I did it this time. So one way to do it is the way I'm not going to show you, but you might notice that this shape right here is a trapezoid. So I could use a trapezoid formula. And then this shape right here is a semicircle, half a circle. But I peeked, and the way I did it on this particular lesson is instead I broke it up into a triangle, the rectangle, and the semicircle. So I did 3 instead. But either way, you should get the same answer. So go ahead and try it whichever way makes sense to you. So for the semicircle, I'm going to do 1/2 pi r squared. Rectangle is base times height, and area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. So my semicircle here, I have a radius of 15. My rectangle is 15 by 30. And then the triangle is a base of 18, a height of 15. So I plug those into the formula. And I have this as a simplified answer so far. And remember, it didn't say to round. So I am not going to combine this that has a pi in it with these. This would be the exact. If the question, so in other words, I just added these two. If the question had said round to the nearest whole number, like I wrote right here, then I would put, whoops. Oh, I just wrote it a different way. I think someone might have asked me in the past, can I write it like this? And that's totally fine. But if the question had said round to the nearest whole number, you would then put this whole thing or this whole thing in your calculator and press enter, and that would be rounded to the nearest whole number. So if it doesn't say to round, your answer will have pi in it if you're working with a circle or a semicircle. All right, so here's another situation where you're going to have a composite figure. So go ahead, give yourself a chance to try it. I'm going to jump in. So I broke it up into the triangle, the rectangle, and the rectangle. So as you can see here, I've got area of a triangle, area of a rectangle, area of a rectangle. So base times height divided by 2 for the triangle, plus base times height, plus base times height. So the small one is 2 by 5. The rectangle, the bigger one, is 10 by 11. So notice I have the 5 here and the 5, so that's why this is 10. And then this is 11 because this whole thing is 13. And this is 2. So that makes this 11. So hopefully you're not just copying this down, you're really stopping and thinking about where I get these numbers from. So this is my base for the triangle, and this is my height. So base times height divided by 2 for the triangle, base times height for the rectangle, and then I already said the 2 times 5 for the small one. So in this situation, there's no pi's. So when I add it together, I get the 40 feet squared, but I'm not done because they're asking me how much will the carpet cost if it costs $2.75 per square foot. So then I have to multiply the number of square feet by $2.75, and I get $385. All right, give this one a try. Make sure you read the problem. Okay, so you should notice that I have semicircle, trapezoid, rectangle. So 1/2 pi r squared plus area of a trapezoid, which remember, it's just like a triangle. I've got add my bases times the height divided by 2. And then the rectangle is base times height. So now I have 1/2 times pi, and here's my radius because this whole thing is 5, so that's only 2.5. For my rectangle, I've got a height of 1. I've got my base 1 and my base 2. So I'm going to add those together and then divide by 2. And then my rectangle right here is 4 by 3. Now, it does ask me to round to the nearest cent. So I can put this whole thing in my calculator. But I don't want to round yet. So when I do that, I get 25.817 ... And the ... is me saying that I still have it stored in my calculator. So make sure you try putting that in your calculator and getting the same thing as me. Now I'm going to keep that in my calculator. And then I'm going to multiply by 8 because remember, it costs $8 a square foot. And then I'm going to add the, oh, it's 35. Whoopsies, I did 55. So I better fix that. So this should be 35. Try that again. So this is $35. which means my answer is going to be a little too big. I got to make this $20 cheaper. Okay, so I did this whole thing in my calculator, and I have $241.5398 ... They want me to round to the nearest cent, so that's going to be right here, nearest cent. So if I look at the 9 is going to make this move up to a 4. So, whoops, I gotta fix it one more time. $241.54. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking at this point, what do I need to memorize? Well, as you're doing your homework, I would also add that you need to make sure you know all the formulas that we just discussed in the beginning here. You do need to know all of these formulas. They are not going to be on the reference sheet this year on the Regents exam. So if you don't know any of them, I know kite is a new one. If you don't know the other ones, then I would definitely consider making flashcards for this unit because we will have a lot of formulas in this unit. All right, so go ahead and start your homework, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.